So you have Chinese state media now, and this is important, it's 10 a.m. local time, so it's about 8 hours back, so very early morning in the Asia hours here, saying that the U.S. has been proactively reaching out to China through various channels seeking to negotiate here on tariff issues. That's according to this post by a social media account at around that time affiliated with the state broadcaster CCTV. Minmin, our China correspondent, is here to take us through the latest here and what we know so far based on the translation of this post here.
Yeah, so it's interesting because we actually haven't gotten any official announcements from any Chinese ministries, but this social media post is seen as pretty reliable given it is affiliated with state TV, state media, and it's citing sources saying that the U.S. has been reaching out through various channels, and it really shows us, it paints a different picture of what Trump has been saying, right? He's been saying that China needs to reach out first, that China needs to deal more, and this morning he says there is a strong likelihood that we could reach a deal soon, and he says any deal will have to be on U.S. terms, but that still remains to be seen. That social media post was saying that the fact that the U.S. is reaching out first, it shows that the U.S. is more anxious and that China doesn't actually need to negotiate unless the U.S. offers something more meaningful. So it remains to be seen because the U.S. has said they won't be offering any unilateral lowering of tariffs. So what is the U.S. going to offer? What would be enough to get both sides to come to the table? That's the big question. And of course, President Xi has been chairing this symposium as well in Shanghai, discussing the next 5-year plan from 2026 to 2030. And the big focus there was all about managing China's own affairs well. We know China has been, girding itself for a protracted tariff war. They are prepared to stay in this for the long haul and not in a big rush to try to negotiate with the U.S.
And meanwhile, this sort of de-risking from both sides, right? We have a story here that talks about how CIC, that's the sovereign fund in China,
yes,
is starting to look at ways to divest some of its U.S. assets.
Yes, we have seen this actually not just with China. Some of the big endowment funds from U.S. universities like Harvard and Yale, they've been cutting exposure to U.S. assets. So the Chinese Sovereign Wealth Fund, we don't have, public data on how much exposure they have to private assets by country, but we understand from sources that it is looking to sell some of its alternative assets, such as assets in real estate, in infrastructure, as well as some private equity, selling as much as $1 billion in U.S. private equity. Not clear now what exactly is the target that they have in terms of reducing their exposure, and we know publicly, based on their annual report as of 2023, about U.S. makes up 60% of its holdings of its public stock holdings, and it has about half of its holdings in alternative assets, and this certainly will put more pressure on U.S. assets, given the weak data we're seeing growth coming down in the U.S. as well.
Yeah, hard and soft data. Minmin, thank you so much.